My name is Sam. I'm the Marketing and Communications Manager here at Fairy Godboss. And Fairy Godboss is the largest career community for women. Our mission is to improve the workplace by increasing transparency. We offer a ton of great free resources like anonymous company reviews, job listings, articles, virtual recruiting events, and so much more to help you succeed throughout your career. Before we get started, we will be taking questions at the end of today's webinar. As always, you'll find the Q&A at the bottom of your screen. Feel free to leave questions as yourself or anonymously, and we will get to as many as possible at the end. We're also recording today's webinar, and we will be sending it out in a follow-up email along with some info that Kate has generously shared with us. So be on the lookout for that in your inbox later today. Finally, last note that closed captioning is available during this webinar. You can toggle it on or off at the bottom of your screen so you can find it there. Here with me today is Kate Mcdonald, founder and CEO of Broadreach Career. Thank you so much for being here today, Kate. I'll pass it over to you.
Thank you. And thank you so much for allowing me to present today. And I'm super excited. I've really been a big supporter of Fairy Godboss since I've heard of it. So I'm really excited. And just FYI, I'm going to be asking a few questions throughout. And I'm going to be creepily in the chat box. So definitely be posting what you feel comfortable with there. And I'd recommend if you have a like piece of paper and a notebook, I'm just going to have you guys do like a couple tallies for a few things. And then also I'm going to have some resources like Sam said at the end. So perfect. All right. I'm a little nervous, guys. So I know this is a wonderful community, but you know how it is when you're doing something new. So here we are today. So how to find a career that keeps you engaged and being presented by Broadreach Career, also with Fairy Godboss. So today, all right, so just a quick outline. So we're going to do an intro, who the heck am I, questionnaire. So that's when you're going to want some of the pen and paper. So definitely run, go grab it. And then we're going to hop into the importance of understanding your personality, how to use your strengths to your advantage, talk about a little discount for FGB members, how to connect with me, and then we'll open it up for questions. All right, so my name's Kate Mcdonald. I am the founder and CEO of Broadreach Career. I'm based in Portland, Maine, but as I alluded to earlier, I am currently in the USVI's kind of quarantining and, living my best life. So I have degrees in international business, global supply chain management, and French, and I'm currently continuing my education at Duke University for digital media and marketing, which is super fun. With work, so the whole idea of Broadreach Career was founded after I graduated, and I kept kind of bouncing from career to career, industry to industry, basically kept looking for, a $10,000, $15,000 raise, more benefits. And I thought that chasing the money would be, the saving grace that made me feel kind of engaged and inspired and willing to go to the next level. And I kind of had this epiphany that, through college and through high school, I was never asked what I want to be when I grew up. I was never asked, what do I want to do? What's my purpose? What lights me up, what fires me up? And for me, that has been the defining reason of starting Broadreach, was that epiphany of no one having asking me. So I went, 10 years out of university and kind of had this, quite frankly, this like, oh shit moment of, if I'm in the same job, in the same career for the next 40 years until I retire, like I'm going to feel like a complete failure. Like I can't wake up and do this over and over again. And what I'm doing currently just isn't working. So I've been working with women for, the past year or so, and thankfully it's been going very, very well. I developed this program with professors from Babson University. I saw someone from Boston in there, so New England girl through and through. as well as University of Southern Maine, HR professionals, career counselors, therapists, everyone that I could get to help for the past 3 years to develop this course. And it was just everything that I found that just I tried to put everything together to make it as, like, quite frankly, idiot proof as possible. And it was all the things that I had needed. And I would get bits and pieces, in different aspects of my life, but it just wasn't put together in this package deal and making it as simple as possible to kind of correlate everything together. And we'll move on. So, questionnaire. All right, bear with me as I attempt to do this. All right, and I probably should ask, could someone just in the chat box be like, I can hear you, we're good to go. I can see the questionnaire. You're good. All right, awesome. I love it. Thank you, Rosie. So this is what I give to all of my clients before I even meet with them one-on-one. And we'll get to like a few of the questions, but I want to skip to the end right now. And this is one of the documents that I'm going to be providing for Sam to send out. So if you're here, I'm assuming, I think it's pretty, good leap of faith, that you're not feeling super engaged with your job. Maybe just are questioning, am I in the right spot? What do I do? What questions to ask myself? Do I need to make a change? And we're going to go through that. So with your piece of paper and pen, so there are just 14 quick questions here. I'm going to just read them off. And if you could just do like a quick, yes, no, and just tally it up. If you want to send, however it is, however many you have for either column in the chat, I'd love to keep it as engaging as possible. Engaging, I keep going back to that. But so do you dread going to work? Do you feel stuck in your job? Do you feel disengaged at work? And if I'm going too fast, you're gonna get this as well. Do you feel disengaged in your personal life? And that can be anything from when you're going home and you're talking to your partner and you find yourself complaining about work and you're just tired, annoyed, pissed off. No judgment, been there and not great. Do you feel drained by your work? Do you feel overwhelmed at work? Do you make constant apologies? I feel like lately, especially I've seen on FGB of sending those emails of saying oh, my apologies for the delay, those little things. Are you restless and or bored with your work? Do you make excuses about your progress and output? Do you take frequent breaks without a legitimate reason? Do you talk negatively about your coworkers? No judgment. I've been that negative water cooler chatter. Not proud of it, but it's my reality. Does your work feel meaningless or unworthwhile? Do you feel like you're just spinning your wheels in this job? And do you feel like you're losing track of your career? I do. So Hermina, I do have some questions for people in transition. I think a lot of these are a good baseline. I'm also going to get to the next section, as well as kind of some general questions to ask yourself about identifying who you really are, what matters to you, what are your values. So we're going to kind of encompass all of that. So how should we tally all the yeses versus all the nos? So if you said yes, how many yeses did you have? And thank you for clarifying. I appreciate that. 8, 9, I'm seeing 10, 12, 10, 9, 7, 11, 12, 13. No judgment, Jenna. We're here together. 11, 6, 9, 8. All right. So the reason why I ask these questions, I like to put it, it's interesting when you step back from how you are doing and you think about it as if you were talking to a friend. So if you were talking to your best friend, your ride or die, your closest amigo, and they were telling you, you asked them all these questions, you're having a glass of wine, you're doing your whatever. And they said, I think the most common I saw was 8 of the 14. If they had listed out and said yes to feeling 8 of those 14, would you say, hey, I think you're doing great. I think you should stay where you are? No, obviously not, right? You'd want them to be thriving in a job that they love and they're excited about. And, it's just no way to live. But that's just like a little like personal tip for me. It's easier if I'm talking to a friend instead of talking to myself. I feel like I'm a little bit kinder. All right, so career assessment. So these are very common. I pulled these from Gallop, which we're going to get into a little bit later in the presentation. But it's interesting. So these are some of the most common wishes, wants, opinions, desires, what be it, of millennials in the workplace. So just another quick tally. This is just more for your just gauging where you are. I know some of these I don't necessarily agree with, but it's a common, and I'm 28, I'm smack dab in the middle of the millennial generation. So have you switched jobs in the last 12 months? Do you believe that 12 to 24 months is the optimal time to stay in one job? Do you expect to stay no longer than 5 years with the same employer? Would you quit your job for a better paying offer? That's the trap I fell into. So just kind of keep that in mind. Chasing the money doesn't always work. Would you, okay, I just did that. Would you switch jobs for more PTO? Paid vacation. I mean, depending on where you live, it's what you call it. Is job specific training important to you? I'm really interested about this one because a lot of my clients said no to this, which actually really surprised me. Are you more likely to be engaged with your work if your manager met with you more regularly? Do you consider the concept of employee loyalty overrated? And do you consider freelancing as a viable career? So if you guys could tally that and just send how many yeses you had for those. All right, 5, 2, 5, 3, 2, 6. No judgment, Gen X. 3, 1, 2. Interesting. Very interesting. If you wouldn't mind, could you also send what generation you are? If you're, are we talking about same job, just better pay, PTO? Same job title. That's a good question, Rosie. So same job title, just different spot. Gen X, Gen X are in the house. Borderline millennial. I heard the phrase Zennial a few days ago, which I had never heard of. Those kind of on the cusp. So I'm going to be sending, I believe Sam is going to be sending this out. So you guys can kind of be able to fill out on your own time as well, because there are certain questions that I'm going to pose that are at the top of this. I'm talking with my hands, so we're just going to ignore that. And I want you to be able to fill it out at your own pace and really think about some of the questions, because it will all come together. Borderline millennial. So I've heard, so like 24-year-olds, I believe 23, 24, they're like on the cusp of the Gen Z and millennial. And so they kind of have characteristics and traits of both. All right. So like I said at the beginning, I send this out to all of my potential clients. So some of them are going to be relevant to this. Some of them aren't. Oh no, I'm not forgetting the boomers. Don't worry, Paula. I think these are, I think these questions everyone should be asking themselves. And I've worked with a few boomers over the past, actually, I just was working with one this morning, and it's kind of the same deal. It's just a different time of your life of, maybe you have your kids that are, on their way to college or, not necessarily, like it's just different periods of your life where you're having different changes. All right. So, two questions I really want to point out because I feel like this has been a common factor for all of my clients. And I've fallen into this trap of what's your daily routine look like a typical routine. Because for me, it used to be I'd wake up, I wouldn't really have time to work out or meditate or, have an actual breakfast. It was like I woke up, I had a cup of coffee, I was out the door, like going to work. And I just like complain that, oh, I don't have time to like work out or do any of the things I want to do. It's like, no, I was just laying in bed scrolling on Instagram and not making things that were important to me a priority. So I'd ask yourself, what daily habits do you wish you had? For me, once I put out what my daily routine was looking like, I also found that I was kind of lying to myself of like, oh, I woke up at, 6:30. Meanwhile, I was waking up at 5:45 because I'm a psycho and that's how my body is, and just laying in bed for 45 minutes doing nothing. So another thing, what does self-care look like to you? And I promise we're going to be getting into personalities and strengths, but I think it's really important to understand like who you are as a person, like fundamentally, what you enjoy, what you dislike, what you like, and kind of as a whole person, because you're not just your career. Because I won't go off on this tangent. However, I think it's crazy that when you meet someone new, it's like, oh, hi, I'm Kate. What do you do for a living? It's like, that's the first question. It's like, well, I'm a daughter. I'm a damn good friend. I'm trying to be a golfer. I love to travel. Like, I have all these other pieces of me that it's not just, hi, this is my job title. I'm shaking with my left hand, apparently. So that's a thing. What was the last book you read and loved? This is something that I found super interesting, kind of tying in with the schedule. And it's for me, I love reading. I'm like a huge Audible girl, so shout out to Audible. But I will like blow through books so quickly. And it's amazing how I like in the past said, like, oh, I don't have time for that. It's like, yes, I do. I'm just choosing not to make it a priority. And it gives me so much joy to enter into a new world. Or if you haven't read Untamed by Glennon Doyle, I always plug it because she's amazing. So again, I'm going to be sending this, or you can either Sam and I will work it out if she can send it in the email, or I'm going to give you guys my contact info at the end so you can fill it out yourself. The Alchemist was really good. Hoopla and Overdrive. Oh, sorry. I'm always in the need for a new book. Always in the need. So what was your dream job as a kid? So obviously, like, I want to be a professional ski racer, which clearly didn't work out. Nor did I really try, but it's also kind of getting back to those childish, what did I enjoy? What was a passion? And for me, like skiing and sailing are so ingrained in me. And yet, as I was kind of in that point of my career that before I started this company, I didn't make time for it because I was either too tired or, it was too much effort, and I didn't put as much effort into the things that I enjoyed as my work, which I really am a firm believer in the work-life balance. And I know that's like talked about a lot, but I think for me, when I go off and do something that's just for me, that's like a passion, I tend to be able to come back into work, compartmentalize, focus more, and just be happier. So I've also found with my clients, a lot of women know kind of what they want to do for work. They know the characteristics of the job. They know what industries they don't want to work in. But it's very interesting because a lot of the time it's just having the confidence to be able to say, I want to try something new. I want to try something different. So I would definitely I'm a big like brainstormer. Sometimes it's like a notepad, like stream of consciousness. Sometimes it's like I'm sitting on my phone, just like blah, 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 blah. And totally know the characteristics of a job I want, just feel underqualified to try something new. All right. So I'm forgetting where the statistics, where was that from? It may have been Gallop. Okay, so when a man applies for a job, he waits until he meets 60% of the job requirements versus a woman will wait until she meets 100% of the qualifications. I could be a little off with those stats, but it was like a 40% difference, which, ew, I know, right? It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. And the final question for this, what is the best piece of advice you have ever been given? Because it's very, very interesting when someone will say what the best piece of advice is, but not necessarily inherently feel it or believe it yet about themselves. And it's kind of this, I don't know if it's cognitive dissonance, but it's that gap of, all right, I believe this externally, but I have to wait until I feel it. So, ooh, is that an H? Okay, I really hope I can like save the chats because I really need some new books and I'm such a sucker for everything HBR. So we'll hop back in. Bear with me. Sam, you shouldn't send that to me during this because I'm really challenged not to click on it. All right, so why are we here? I know we have some boomers and Gen Zs in the house, however, or well, a few different ones, but I really was shocked by this statistic. Gen Y, thank you, Kate. That only 29% of millennial workers are engaged at work. So I love Gallop. They pull a bunch of statistics together. And I found that they are as unbiased as you can get in statistics, because we all know you can, skew the numbers however you want. But for me, it was really indicative of my friend group at the time of, when I was 25, we were all corporate, doing that, 8 to 5 grind and then working for another few hours, and it just miserable. And I'd get to the point of like, I'd have anxiety when I had an email come through and I wouldn't want to answer it because I was like, oh my God, I don't even know if I can handle it. Eye-opening quote for me: if you don't build your dreams, someone will hire you to help build theirs. Amen. Amen. And happiness is not a state to arrive at, but ooh. Amen, Karina. That dream doesn't have to be your own biz either. I mean, fill in the blank. All right. Best piece of it, you are the only one who preach. I hate how true that is. And it's amazing if you look up, God, what is it? Well, I know I'm thinking about Brene Brown. She has obviously a super famous TED Talk about vulnerability. And I think it's amazing when we vocalize our irrational fears. Like my best friend, Leslie, like she's my ride or die, like best friend forever. If I just say like, hey, I'm feeling insecure about XYZ, and she's like, no, like I mean, she's supportive, but we're also at that level of, understanding each other's crazy. But it's amazing when you put something out into the universe and just say like, hey, I'm having one of those crazy thoughts, how it holds less power than if you're just holding it inside. All right, so importance of understanding your personality. Let me see if I can move this a little bit. Apologize. I don't really need to be staring at my face, do I? Rising professional groups belong to recommended this book yesterday. I've got What Got You Here Won't Get You There. All right, I'm trying to add as many mental notes as I can. So we're going to be talking about your personality as well as strengths. So personality we'll get into in a little bit more detail, but bottom line is understanding your personality gives you a better understanding of what actually makes you tick. So it's great. So my dad, I wasn't planning on talking about this, but my dad is a commercial broker in real estate broker in Portland, Maine. And, he could sell, ice to, well, he's good. He's a very good salesman. And as I was creating this course, he wanted to kind of go through and see, because he's at that point of transitioning. He calls it being on his silver slide, which I'm sure he would love me telling that to, a room full of women. But he's trying to figure out what to do next in his life. So I understand, boomers, I'm here for you. And when he got his results, he was, but basically he was an introvert. I'm forgetting the specific letters. And I was like, how could that be possible? Like, you could literally sell anything. You own this company, like everyone knows you. Like, we can't go, when I was growing up, it was so embarrassing. We couldn't go into the grocery store without him knowing a million people. And yeah, he's an introvert. And as I've gotten older, I understand that he can turn it on. He doesn't like to, like, he can show up, present, sell what he needs to sell and get out, but he would be much happier sitting at home, me visiting, the dogs, on the floor, my mom reading or cooking and just hanging out. Like, that's his happy place. So it's really interesting, kind of that juxtaposition. Introverts recharge alone. I know. Hey, I'm an extrovert and I still need like some recharge time depending on what situation I've been in. So taking the time to ensure that your personality is compatible with your career choice is extremely important. I'm going to go into an example next with my friend. I changed her name, so I'm forgetting which name I gave her. So I don't want to put her on blast. If you do not invest the time now to figure out what makes you happy and keeps you motivated every day, it could lead to an unhappy future. Amanda, I can relate to that so much. People say I'm a people person, but my personality is more than 90% introvert. I get it. Hashtag team extrovert. I'm with you. So many of us have been conditioned. Okay, so this is a big one. So a lot of us have been conditioned by friends, family, and everything to like fit the certain role. It's really interesting to look at, like, I'm an only child, so there are like certain characteristics of that are like spot on. But with my friends that have, there's 3 kids in the family of, how it goes. But it's just very interesting of how we have been told we are certain things and we kind of grow up believing it versus actually being like, oh, I'm not actually an extrovert. I'm just like, I've just been told like that's who I am and I have a big personality and blah, blah, blah. But once you kind of align yourself with who you really are, and that seems so silly, like you would think, oh, I know who I am. I know what I value. I know XYZ, but sometimes it takes a little bit more attention. I recommend meditation if anyone's into that. I thought it was total BS. And now I it's been like 3 years it probably took me a month of just dedicated like 5 minutes. That's all I could take at that time. But it really helps kind of calm my extroverted type A self. So that was a random tangent. I apologize. And we are going to pop into, So case study. So Sarah, I'm glad I nearly said her real name. So I went to school with Sarah, and she she is incredibly smart. She was one of those women that she was just the life of the party. Everyone knew her on campus, and just social butterfly in every club. You would see her, like, literally, she was like the poster child for the university and being involved. So she was told that, I mean, it was pretty apparent. I have a major on global supply chain management, but she decided to get her major in it, or her master's, excuse me. And I was talking to her a few months ago, and I was like, yeah, how's it going? What's the deal? And she was having this, and I'm not saying this is the same for just industry wide. This is just a large company within that field. It's a very siloed role, even more so with COVID, but irrelevant to the conversation. It was like her not talking to anyone, maybe one call a week with the team, but just very isolated, like no Slack, nothing. And this girl, like, life of the party, like killing it, had this like, oh, expletive, try not to swear, moment. And it's like, I want to be in HR. Like, I love solving problems. I love meeting people. I love understanding them. I love like helping. And you can help obviously within different industries, different roles, different companies. But if you have that kind of passion to help in like a human-centered way, it's just more encompassing of who she is as a person. So when we talked about that, she ended up switching over to an HR role, which I'm really happy for her about. I have to flex, Brandy. I have to flex through being an introvert into being an extrovert for my job. I do it very well, but after years, it led to burnout. It is exhausting. Preaching to the choir. I have been there, and I'm definitely an extrovert, but it's also one of those things of, when you're in sales, it's like you got to turn it on. You got to, like, be extra on. And I think I've gotten to the point, maybe it's just because I'm like getting older, but it's like I don't really care I care what people think of me, but it's not this like that thought in the back of your head of like, oh my God, like no one's gonna like you and you need to be perfect. And if you don't have a manicure, like, I was pretty shallow at that time. But learning about your personality allows you to think about your emotions, behaviors, and ways of thinking on a day-to-day basis. So some questions to ask yourself. Let me move the chat. And I'm really loving you guys participating in the chat. It makes me feel like I'm not alone, just sitting by myself talking to, my screen. Again, it's the extrovert that's coming out. So for example, ask yourself, do you prefer to work alone or do you prefer to work with others? And what does working alone versus working with others look like to you? So sometimes that's on a team. Sometimes that is, having the freedom to do a project and then like checking in at the end. Maybe it's like, I don't want any oversight. I want to just like do my little thing and send it in. And I don't want to talk to anyone, which is totally fine. Sorry, there's some random construction. Going great. I took a career assessment. It showed that I can be an introvert or extrovert, which I feel is true. Absolutely. I also feel like it can happen based on different points of your life and what you have going on. But I can definitely kind of turn it on, and it's an interesting kind of flow. I just switched to a role that works more with others, but sorry, I don't have my glasses on, so I probably should. What made me realize I actually prefer my heads down, focused time to myself. I'm an extroverted introvert. I totally get that. In college, I was like heads down, like don't talk to me. I'm studying, I'm doing my thing. And, at the end, like maybe I'll study with you. But do some of your clients struggle with yes, no nature of the questions? For me, the context I am in is important. And so I like these questions just because it opens up an internal dialogue. So whether you're working with me like professionally or you're going home and you're just filling stuff out by yourself, really follow that train of thought to be make it what you make of it. So for some people, it's like very like yes, no, clear cut. And if you're having this like, kind of going one way or another, feeling kind of pulled in the yes, but or no, but like feel free to journal on it or write about it of like what is that kind of holdup that you're having. And it really, I mean, this isn't like a clear cut thing. And I would say the more work you do around whatever questions, whatever doubts you're having, the more value you're going to one bring to the table once you decide where you want to pivot to, or just more confidence of like, I've really thought about this. I've really put the work in and I know exactly what I want. So I hope that makes sense. Um, Ask yourself, are you the type of person that likes to have an open, flexible schedule that allows you to be spontaneous? So that's big. That's a big one for me. So, like I said, I'm down in St. Thomas, and like I'm the CEO and founder, but I have a really great team that works with me that allow me to, free up my schedule to do the things I love to do. I know that obviously hasn't been the case. Like I used to work a job that I was working like on average 80 hours a week. That was the job that, led to me not being a uh, super pleasant girlfriend partner. Because I was so tired, I was so burnt out. I was just like complaining to him, and we'd be at dinner and I'd have to like bounce and go back to work, go back to the office. But I digress. It was a great time. And like I said, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to like reach out to me directly. But if you're just like that introvert, I don't want to like talk to you, like that's totally fine. I get it. But really any questions that come up that you're really on the fence of, this isn't really a yes or a no, write out what you're thinking. All right. So Myers-Briggs. So you suggest when it's not very clear what the next step is best for you. I see the positive side in almost every area of the company I work with. I've been struggling to really point out what I want to focus on. So Elizabeth, I would wait until the end, and these are just a few tools to be able to identify at least a baseline. Because I've been there, especially when there's a mission in the company that you really support, but you feel kind of torn of, I'm really good at, the analytics piece on marketing, but I'm also great in like an outside sales role. Still, it really depends. And I'd love to chat with you further. I don't know why I keep playing with my hair, so we're just going to ignore that. So I highly recommend Myers-Briggs for understanding the personalities. There's a free, I think I go into the next one, but Myers-Briggs is basically like the standard across everything that I do. But in a nutshell, it shows you how you perceive the world and make decisions. So, that introverted, extroverted, like you'll see all the letters. I'm an ENFJ myself. So, and there's a lot of free resources that will help give you valuable insights into your temperament and how you see the world. And it kind of gives you just a clearer understanding. So I super love 16 personalities. And like, this isn't sponsored, but I work with them very frequently. God, I've been talking a lot. I apologize. I want to leave a lot of time for questions. So 16 personalities, it is very, very thorough, and you can pay for like a more thorough level. But there's a free one, and it's not one of those that you have to like give your email and then they bombard you with like thousands upon thousands of emails and then you never like unsubscribe. Um, I just went through an email purge a few days ago of all the things I've signed up for, but 16 personalities is awesome. And if you have any questions, like feel free to reach out. So how to use your strengths to your advantage. So strengths is different than your personality type, right? So Gallop has actually, again, I'm not sponsored by Gallop, but I use them all the time and I've taken their courses to be able to like fully understand what I'm talking about. But they came up with, it's like the gold standard in career counseling. That is, like a test, and I'll give you guys those resources. But how can you use your strengths to your advantage? How can you figure out the right career path if you don't know what your strengths are? Seems straightforward, right? But I think a lot of us don't necessarily identify what our top strengths are, because all of us have strengths regardless of where what education we have, what industry background, what it could be everything from life skills to hard and soft skills. So it's like super important, at least for me and not for my clients. It's been a very, very successful program to be able to kind of create a hybrid model of understanding what your personality is, what your strengths are, who you are as a person, to be able to kind of figure out by process of elimination with those skills and strengths and personality of they're aligned with certain careers. So being able to whittle that down. And the ultimate goal is you want your life to be as simple as possible. Obviously, in your career, not everything's gonna be perfect and like super quick. Not super quick and not super, there's certain things with any job that you're not going to enjoy doing all the time, every day. But just kind of just make it as simple as possible. Utilize your strengths to the best of your ability. So my example, so I was at boarding school down in Mass. Again, shout out to the Boston gal here. And I was doing really well in all of my subjects other than chemistry. I just couldn't do it. Like there's a mental disconnect. I just couldn't do it. And I had A's in everything else. And it was my first year at boarding school. And it was tough and just super challenging. And I had a C at the end of my first semester. And it was a nightmare. It was a nightmare. And I called my mom, like, God, I'm going to, I'm doing all this work and, I'm going to study hall and, I'm calling, my mom was a dentist for 30 years. And like, I'm calling to ask her questions at like 9:30 at night. My mom, she goes to bed at like 8 o'clock. So she's like helping me out. And I was doing that for 2 months. And I got to the point of getting my next set of grades. My C grade in chem had gone up to a C plus. Clearly it made an impact because this was like almost a decade and a half ago, which is sad to admit. But all of my other grades that were A's had dropped down to A minuses or B pluses. So I was putting all this extra work into this one course that I was not going to do well in, can't still NaCl, H2O, that's all I've got. That's all I've got from my chem time. But my parents were like, you're not going to be a chemist. You don't want to do anything within that field. Why are you sweating this so much? And the amount of effort that you're putting into this is not worth it at the expense of the classes that you're already doing well in and loving. All right, so why this matters. If we identify what you naturally thrive in, so me, not chemistry, we can help fit that piece into the career discovery puzzle rather than wasting your time. And for me, it's like, I still call my mom if I have any science-y related questions, not that it comes up that often, or I ask Google, which, whatever, it's a thing. So it's really interesting. So Gallop, I know I'm harping on Gallop a lot, but they're the best. Check them out after. So individuals who understand what their strengths are 6 times as likely to be engaged in their jobs. So let's increase that 29%, right? Um, 6 times as likely to strongly agree that they have the opportunity to do what they do best every day. And they are 3 times as likely to report having an excellent quality of life. So again, you want to have that, that path of least resistance. So, quick example, my mom and dad, I don't remember all of the details, but my mom and dad were both taking a master's level class for my dad's MBA, and my mom just happened to pop in. She was she's incredibly talented. She was a dentist for 30 years, like very, very smart. It was a finance class, and my dad's just like a naturally math-minded individual. He was an engineer before going to commercial real estate. But my mom literally only passed. I'm not saying she cheated off my dad, but I'm saying she may have had some extra help from my dad. And she was doing this because she knew that down the line she was going to own her practice and kind of wanted to understand how the financial piece worked. And at the end of that course, she had this realization of, I can just hire someone to do the finances. Like, I don't need to be in someone's mouth drilling and, doing the financial piece at the end of the day. So it wasn't worth her time to try to pick up this skill or learn this thing if she, it's not super relevant. So shout out to the moms and dads out there. And so I'm sorry, I didn't want to super rush through the end, but I did want to leave time for questions. All right, thanks, Karina. Send me a message if you have any questions. So I'm going to be offering a discount for Fairy God Boss members using the code FGB29 for that 29% engaged. We're going to try to get that number up. And if you have any questions, obviously I do like free consultations. I'd love to chat with you. And for right now, well, where to find me, I'm sure this will be in the email, but that's it for me other than questions.
Thank you so much, Kate. That was a really helpful presentation, and I've already seen a lot of great comments come through. As we mentioned before, we'll be sending out the recording straight to your inboxes later today, along with the worksheet that Kate used during the presentation and her contact info. So I know a few people are asking where you can find that. We will be sending it to you. I'm also seeing questions about the recording. Yes, we will send you the link to rewatch this. You can also find it on that same event page where you first registered for the event as well, Rebecca. So if you don't get the email, just check back on the event page. Should be up by this afternoon, pending nothing goes wrong. It will definitely be up by tomorrow, though. So let's jump into some questions. As a reminder, please go to the Q&A at the bottom of your screen. You can leave questions as yourself or anonymously. It's the easiest place for us to keep track of them. But Alexis has a question. She says, what kind of team builders would you suggest in this virtual world?
So sorry, I'm pulling this up as we're going. So team builders in what respect do you mean? I'm assuming what you mean is to kind of bridge the gap with COVID, to kind of have that like more healthy engagement. I think it really is case by case with how big your team is, what industry you're in, and for me, like there are certain things that sorry, there are people right outside. Honestly, I would put more emphasis on the one-to-one right now. For me, I think, and for my clients and just what I've seen just as a human, I think we're missing that human interaction and genuine care. And so I just recommend doing like a coffee or a wine at the end of the night, whatnot, virtually COVID safe, friendly, the drill. But I think there's a lot of value right now, and we really need that like one-on-one care, and that will kind of trickle down to the group at large until we can, because I think large groups, unless it's like a presentation like this, it's weird on Zoom. So I'm big on the one-to-one.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And it kind of goes back to what you were talking about like personality types as well, and kind of knowing what is going to recharge people. Like for some
Mhm.
people, you mentioned like the group setting is where it's at. And for a lot of people, it's that one-on-one connection that you're talking
Yeah.
about that is going to kind of help them, feel better, keep up morale, stay connected, all that great stuff. Elizabeth asked a great question here. She says, what do you suggest to stay motivated after a period of burnout?
Oh, girl, I've been there. I've been there. So honestly, I'm a big like journaler, if I could say the word right, journaler. And being able to like, oh, you'll have the list of questions that we are going over at the beginning, but really thinking of like what brings you joy. And people say, oh, just focus on self-care, focus on self-care. It's like, okay, me getting a manicure is not gonna, that's the second time I mentioned a manicure. So clearly that's on my brain. But that's not the type of self-care that after a career burnout phase is gonna fix. It is connecting back what really inspires you, gives you joy, connecting with friends, you know, going like working out or meditating or reading a book, something that inspires you to hop back in. And that's not going to look the same for everyone. But I know like travel is huge for me. Clearly that's not super possible, as I say, as I'm sitting in the Caribbean. Um, but normally I'm on a plane like 6 times a year. So that's what really sparks me. But I think reigniting your passion and your kind of joie de vivre is what is going to help you kind of get out of that and move on to the next step.
Great advice. An anonymous attendee asked, I think, a question that a lot of people probably find themselves in. It's a very similar situation. They pursued a job that they thought they were interested in, but after working there for a short period of time, they realized, ooh, this is definitely not for me. Do you have any advice for a person in that situation? This person specifically, they're anonymous, but they wanted to know if they should stay with that job for a few years or just get out as soon as possible. And do you just have any, I guess, general advice for navigating those situations?
Yeah, and thank you for your vulnerability. That's definitely a spot that I know I've been in, and I know a lot of my clients have been in, and friends and whatnot. I would say I think it's not worth your mental anguish to stay in a job that is negatively impacting you. I think that there is a delicate way to go about it. And I think it all begins with a conversation. So try to schedule a chat with your manager or whomever would be the most important, you know, who it makes sense to meet with, and say, like, just be honest. And don't, I mean, I don't think you'd be like, I hate this job, blah, blah, blah. But, my expectations for this were XYZ, and I'm feeling such and such a way. I'd love to contribute to, whatever the mission is, whatever the goal is. Is there a way within this role to be able to be better aligned with that? So it's opening up the dialogue on their end to offer a solution for how you're feeling. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that advice is spot on. You don't, your first option shouldn't be, oh, I need to quit this job immediately. Like Kate said,
Mhm.
talk to whoever makes sense and see if there's a way you can make the role work for you as it is. Likely if your company hired you, they want to keep you more than likely they want you to stay. And so they should, in theory, be willing to work with you on that situation and make sure that you are a happy employee. So I think that advice is perfect. Um, Alternatively, kind of opposite side of the coin here. Priscilla wants to know, she said, what would you suggest to someone who was doing the work she loved? So she had a job she absolutely loved, but the opportunity got cut short due to COVID. And now she can't get other employers to take that experience seriously. They keep thinking that she wants to do what she had been doing previous to the job she loved, even though she wants to do what she was just doing. So how can she kind of navigate that situation and convince employers that, her experience is good, it's relevant, and she should be doing that thing that she likes?
Yeah, I think either Priscilla, I either saw you post that within the feed on FGB, or someone else had a very similar scenario. And I'm sorry that COVID, cut that opportunity short. I would say, depending on what it is, really, I would really do some internal work and identify what you were bringing to the table for that role, why you were like, whenever you're going for a job or an interview or whatnot. I tell my clients, I am going to be, every question that they ask me, I am offering a solution to the problem at hand. So they're clearly hiring for this position because there is something missing. So what can I bring to the table to solve that problem? So I would really do a lot of work to identify what you've learned over however long you were at that position or in that company, what your strengths were, what were some opportunities for growth. And God, that was so corporate of me. Opportunities for growth. You can tell I worked at a Fortune 100, right? Um, but I would just try to work on those skills where you had those opportunities to improve in order to, even solve that problem even, or, solve the problem even more. But just reiterate your passion, and yeah, it'll shine through. I promise. It just, sometimes it takes time.
Yeah, nail on the head there. Passion shows in an interview. You can definitely tell people who are applying for a job because they need a job versus people who are applying because they love what they do.
Mhm.
I mean, Kate couldn't have said it better. With that, we're just about at time. So I want to say thank you to Kate for a wonderful presentation and for taking your time to answer all of the questions that came from our community members. Thank you to everybody who joined us. As a reminder, we'll be sending out the recording later today, along with some contact info and resources from Kate. Kate, did you have anything you wanted to wrap up with before I end things here today?
Yeah, I just want to say thank you guys so much for the opportunity. And it really is a pleasure being involved in the FGB community. And like, don't hesitate to reach out, even if you're an introvert and oh, I don't really want to like be a burden or whatnot. Just send me a message. Sam's going to send out all my contact info, but I genuinely created Broadreach so women don't have to feel like I did for so many years. So if you're in that spot where you're just like, F this, I need help, I don't know what to do, like reach out to me. I don't want any woman to feel like that. So thank you guys so much for allowing me to chat with y'all today.
And thank you for your time. Thanks, everyone, again. And we will catch you at the next one. Have a great rest of your weeks. Bye.
All right. Bye, guys.